What is homeschooling? Homeschooling is schooling or learning that occurs at home. The concept of homeschooling encompasses so much more than that. Homeschooling does not take place in the home only. It almost never looks like school in the traditional sense. A better definition of homeschooling is a learning process that occurs primarily but is not limited to the home. Homeschooling is usually held at the student's home, but it can actually take place in many different locations. It can be at a friend's home, a neighbor's home, a family member's home, or the home of another student. Homeschooling doesn't have to be at home at all. It can be at a library, a museum, a planetarium, a zoo, an aquarium, a science or discovery center, or at a national park. It can be in a car, a minivan, or recreational vehicle. This is just a partial list. Homeschooling can take place anywhere. Homeschooling is a learning process that doesn't have to look like school at all. Learning can take place at the grocery store through the use of a simple grocery shopping trip. Before leaving the home, the student can create the meal plan for the next week, make note of the items needed for the meals, write a grocery list, which is a shopping list for the needed items. Once at the store, the student can shop for the items on the list, compare prices and sizes of the chosen products, check for possible savings, and check out at the register. This one outing alone has taught and reinforced skills such as mathematics, home organization, budgeting, planning, decision-making, just to name a few. In no way does this look like traditional schooling. While most homeschool students are taught by their parents, this is also not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes the parent is not able to teach the student, and the reasons vary widely. Perhaps the parent's work schedule does not allow them to teach their student. The parent might be ill or disabled. The parent may not have the necessary skills or knowledge to teach some or all of the lessons. Yet the student can have a holistic, age and grade appropriate learning experience. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Why homeschool? The reasons for homeschooling are as numerous and as varied as the families who take the path. Sometimes the parents will choose to homeschool for financial or academic or religious or safety reasons. Sometimes the student will ask the parent if they can be homeschooled. COVID-19 and the homebound learning that occurred as a result of it meant that school at home became a requirement for everyone, and even those that did not choose this method of learning. One reason a parent may choose to homeschool is because they cannot afford to give their student the quality education they desire to give them. The family may live in an area with a substandard school district. The parent may want the type of education for their student that is only offered at private schools that far exceed their budget. Homeschooling can offer the parent the opportunity to create a rich learning environment for their student regardless of their financial situation. Great learning does not require unlimited or vast resources, just great creativity and research. Another reason the parent may choose to homeschool is for academic reasons. Similar to the discussion of financial reasons for homeschooling, a parent may not have access to quality schools in their area, whether public or private. A parent may be able to afford to pay the tuition at an expensive private school, but may not have such an option in their local area, and they are not willing to send their student to a boarding school. Regardless of the cost, quality, and availability of the schools in their area, a parent may desire to educate their student at home to provide the student with a religious foundation for their faith. All schools, even secular, non-sectarian schools, frame their curriculum with a particular worldview and agenda, and some parents would rather or prefer their student not to learn within the framework of their local school's worldview. Parents who homeschool for this reason do not face the challenge that those parents face whose students attend traditional schools, namely that they disagree with the worldview and the agenda of the school that their student attends. In every school, there is likely to be some degree of bullying that is occurring. Most every student will experience some form of bullying during their traditional school experience and can have lifelong after effects. Drugs and weapons are being brought to school by other students. In extreme cases, mass shooting events have occurred. No parent wants to subject their student to dangerous conditions such as these just to go to school to get an education. Some parents will teach their student at home for the sake of providing a safe learning environment for them. The COVID-19 pandemic presented a unique and rather interesting situation. During the stay-at-home mandate, parents were forced to keep their children at home for schooling. While it may be a stretch to consider this true homeschooling, the school district, not the parent, directed students' learning and remained in charge of the student's curriculum. Parents did not have the option of sending their students to school during this period, so parents were required to supervise their students' learning at home. Some utilized their own parents, the student's grandparents, or other family members. Some collaborated with other parents to create group learning environments shared between many homes. Some parents utilized learning centers. The variations and locations were numerous, often dictated by the parent's work requirements. For various reasons, sometimes a student will ask their parent to homeschool them. Some students who ask to homeschool have been bullied, threatened, or harassed and simply want a safer learning environment. Others may ask to be homeschooled because they are a student or mature enough to recognize that they learn best in a controlled home environment where the learning can be tailored specifically to their needs. Some of these students know they are easily distracted by peers and can learn best alone, and therefore choose where they can interact with their friends. Other students may have particular educational goals they wish to meet and are not able to reach those goals in school as easily, such as early high school graduation and early college admittance. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. What are the benefits and advantages of homeschooling? In a traditional school environment, the student is more likely to encounter situations where there is some threat to their safety. While the vast majority of students attend school in relative safety, and there is no way that a student's entire life can be completely safe, there are enough threats to a student's safety to make it a real consideration. Practically every student will experience some form of bullying during their K-12 years at school. Most, hopefully, will be mild, but some will be severe, prolonged, and even have long-term, far-reaching effects. Bullying can be verbal, emotional, and physical. It can be social media. It can even involve sexual assault. Most recently, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen that a discussion of safety can even involve health threats. A second advantage to homeschooling is that it enables a parent to create a curriculum and learning environment that best fits the student. Some students are not auditory learners, and as such do not fare well in a traditional classroom setting. Some students are kinesthetic learners, and most student environments are not equipped to provide unlimited access to hands-on learning opportunities for their students. Some students wish to focus on a particular topic or field, and a traditional school setting is not able to accommodate such a goal. A homeschooled student can not only learn the same material as their peers, but can go beyond that, and at their own rate, and still accommodate their own unique interests. Yet another advantage of homeschooling is that the family can adjust the schedule in whatever way they deem appropriate for their needs. A homeschooling family that farms may need to weave their book learning around the various farm chores and animals that need to be taken care of. A homeschooling family with a sick relative can halt their schooling for a few days while they travel to visit and possibly even care for the family member. Homeschooling families tend to have shorter school days. Fewer students means less time for learning, as more focused learning can happen in a classroom of one or few. Students who homeschool can focus on their chosen fields such as sports or music or accelerated learning and go on to earn a college scholarship in their chosen field. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Welcome back. Is homeschooling legal? As recently as a few decades ago, homeschooling was not legal. Now, homeschooling is legal in all 50 United States. What makes this ironic is the fact that learning in the United States, as the country was being founded and populated, occurred exclusively in the home. Compulsory education, or the requirement for children to attend school for learning, did not come into existence until the 1800s. During the Industrial Revolution, more and more children attended school. It was an ideal environment for initiating them into the passive 8-hour-a-day routine that they would one day experience when they became factory workers themselves. While all states now recognize the legality of homeschooling, each state's homeschooling requirements are different. States differ in their requirements for students regarding testing, portfolios, attendance logs, number of books read, number of papers written, paperwork to submit before and after the school year, and etc. In some states, there are requirements that the parent must meet or that other residents in the home must meet. Some states have few requirements. Others, such as New York and Pennsylvania, have many. Make sure you check with your state's laws regarding their homeschooling requirements. This is absolutely critical. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association is an excellent resource for legal matters. Some parents outside the United States may choose to homeschool. Some of these families are not American, others are American expatriates. It is even more important for families in foreign countries to check their country's laws regarding learning at home, because in some countries, homeschooling is illegal and might even be punishable by imprisonment. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. What about socialization? A common question asked by those who are skeptical of, or are in opposition to homeschooling is how students are socialized. If a student learns in isolation, critics argue, it is impossible for this child to be properly socialized. Here's a closer look at the socialization myth and how homeschool students actually have a greater opportunity for socialization than do their school-educated peers. Socialization is understood to be the process of acclimating a person beginning in childhood to the commonly accepted behaviors of society, including interacting with others. Or, within the context of a traditional school environment, socialization is using age-segregated culture to teach a child how to interact with others. A traditional school setting is ideal for teaching a student how to get along with others who are the exact same age. Also, it is ideal for teaching a student how to sit passively for several hours a day, moving through activities created and structured by others. Homeschool students, it is erroneously believed, never learn how to socialize because they lack repeated exposure to this limited learning environment. It can be argued that socialization in the traditional school setting is lacking. In practically no other setting in a person's life will they find themselves in a large group of people of the same basic age and maturity level. Granted, learning to get along with many other individuals of any age can be a broadening experience, but it is limiting if the demographics of the group are so narrowly defined. An arguably better situation for learning socialization is that of being exposed to individuals of all ages and maturity levels and learning how to interact with anyone and everyone. Homeschooling very easily fosters this type of environment for a student. Homeschooling, contrary to what critics say, does not occur in isolation or in a vacuum. Homeschool students are exposed to a wide variety on a regular basis. Every trip to the grocery store, or church, or athletic groups, or fine arts groups, or homeschooling organizations, or nursing homes, or hospitals, or museums, or sporting events, or field trips, and etc. provide rich opportunities for socialization for homeschoolers. And because they typically have more time in their day for outings, homeschool students have more opportunities for participating in these kinds of mixed settings for socialization. Also, if an individual graduates from school and goes on to work in a position where they passively engage in tasks dictated to them by someone else, a traditional school environment is optimal. Yet fewer and fewer jobs structured in this fashion seem to exist. Rather, individuals who are free thinkers, get along with all types of people, and can adjust in all types of situations are in increasing demand in today's workforce. Homeschoolers will have been fielding these types of situations for years by the time they reach adulthood and are ready to engage in the real world. Fact, they've been engaging in the real world for years, actually even more than their traditionally schooled peers. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. How much time will homeschooling take each day? One of the greatest advantages of homeschooling is the fact that it typically results in a shorter school day than for traditionally schooled students. Giving a specific number of hours that a homeschooler's day might take is an impossibility, obviously, but know that it is a shorter process, yet arguably more effective. In a classroom of 30, 20, or even 10 students, allowances must be made for the fact that there are several different students in the class, all of whom approach learning differently. Students must be able to competently manage several different students with different learning styles at different levels with different personalities and attention spans. Such an undertaking takes time. There are no shortcuts. By contrast, a homeschool student can learn a concept much more quickly. There are few, if any, other students to complicate the learning process, depending on the number of siblings being homeschooled, and the learning can be individualized to meet the student's specific needs and learning style. Understandably, a student can move through a lesson much more quickly as an individual than they can as part of the group. The larger the group, the longer the process takes. Because the method of delivery for learning in homeschool is not narrowly defined, the book learning part of the day, often described as seat time, can be separated from the more kinesthetic activities and may therefore take even less time. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. How to make homeschooling affordable. Homeschooling is incredibly flexible in regards to how much it can cost. It can be adjusted to accommodate any budget. Some parents have a large budget to allot to homeschooling. As such, they may choose to purchase all of the elements, both essential and optional, of one of the more expensive curricula. They may choose to take the more expensive field trips and outings. They may involve their students in very costly co-curricular activities. Yet, homeschooling families on the other end of the spectrum can have just as rich of a learning experience. A lot of money is not necessary for providing a student with a rich learning experience. Granted, the less money a parent has to spend on their students' learning, the more creative and resourceful they will need to become in order to ensure their students' schooling is complete. The easiest but most expensive option is simply to choose a predetermined curriculum for your student, selecting all of the essential components and even some of the optional components. An all-inclusive comprehensive curriculum is, imaginably, about the most expensive option there is. A homeschool curriculum is often comprised of what the manufacturer considers to be the most essential elements and the non-essential or optional elements. You can make this option less expensive by purchasing only your chosen elements. The longer you homeschool, the more you will discover that not all the essential elements are essential. Your comfort level as the teacher will increase each year and you will rely less on the guidance offered in the curriculum. You will also find out that your student tends not to use all of the essential elements as well. An expensive but labor-intensive option is to design the curriculum yourself as the homeschooling parent. While this approach might not be an option in the very beginning of your journey, the longer you homeschool, the more you will be able to determine what you want your student to accomplish and how you will approach the learning. You could conceivably craft an entire curriculum from free online sources, but great care is needed to ensure the sources are credible. The less you can spend, the less ready-made materials you can purchase, and the more time it will take to create those necessary elements yourself. Homeschooling parents who can't or won't pay anything opt to use a virtual charter school. A VCS is not homeschooling in the truest sense. The school retains oversight and mandates the curriculum and directs the content being taught. Some parents see this as a viable option for learning at home for their students. The VCS provides everything the student needs, free of charge, just like an on-ground charter school, as they are both public schools. The trade-off, as mentioned previously, is that the learning path is not determined by the parent. Instead, the school considers you to be their student and you must follow their curriculum, even the elements you may not approve of. You can, of course, supplement the curriculum with anything you feel it may be lacking, and you can even present troublesome topics in the way you deem fit. But the material must still be taught, with the evidence of teaching displayed through artifacts and/or tests. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Different kinds of homeschooling. Many families come to homeschooling for religious reasons. Whether they are Christian, Catholic, Muslim, some parents make the decision that their faith and the incorporation of it into their students' curriculum is of the utmost importance. Granted, these families could simply choose to find a school with the same religious position, yet there is not always a school available with which they resonate religiously. Or if there is, they may not be able to afford it, or they may simply want the homeschooling experience for their student. Indeed, in some faith systems, it is viewed as a parent's responsibility to educate the student. The classical approach is designed to resemble the type of learning that occurred in ancient Greece and Rome that was continued into the Puritan and colonial American education. The classical approach focuses on the trivium, which is the 3 parts of 7 liberal arts, namely grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Grammar is the foundational phase of the trivium, and as such teaches the basics or mechanics. Students learn how to read, compute basic math, and etc. During the second phase, logic, students begin to learn how to process what they've learned and reason through fallacies, basically how to logically think. The third part, rhetoric, utilizes the basics learned in the grammar stage and the understanding gained in the logic stage to demonstrate and communicate the wisdom acquired as a result of the process. A classically trained student learns how to think and how to learn as opposed to simply learning topics. In a unit study, the parent chooses a topic of interest and builds the curriculum around it. So, for a simplified example, the parent knows that the student has an affinity for horses, so the student capitalizes on that interest to teach the lesson. The nature and science aspect of the unit study are obvious. Mathematics could be incorporated by calculating how fast a horse runs given an amount of time and distance covered. English or language arts could be included by having the student read a classic such as The Black Stallion and write a book report. Geography could be part of the lesson by investigating where horses roam freely. Art could be also an element by having the students either draw a horse or color an existing sketch of one. Charlotte Mason was an instructor in the late 1900s who advocated the use of living books and real-life experiences as the ideal approach to education. Living books, as opposed to textbooks, are works of both fiction and nonfiction that engage children in learning. The book mentioned in the previous approach, The Black Stallion, is a good example of a living book. The Charlotte Mason approach incorporates such concepts such as narration, copywork, dictation, and memory work as important components to the learning process. While this method is not necessarily curriculum driven or curriculum dependent, homeschoolers new to this approach might elect to begin with Charlotte Mason and then branch out from there once they become more confident. In the school at home approach, parents approach homeschooling as if it were a micro classroom. Namely, they simply replicate the classroom in the home. This approach is especially appealing to parents who are teachers who have been trained and educated as classroom teachers and are not comfortable with anything but traditional classroom techniques. It is also appealing to parents who choose a curriculum that has the school at home structure. These curricula tend to be comprehensive yet cumbersome. Many new homeschooling families start with the school at home approach but abandon it in subsequent years for something less unwieldy and more flexible. The unschooling approach is very appealing to the more free-spirited homeschoolers. Some parents who are not interested in a structured curriculum or approach of any sort, but rather allow the students to experience learning as naturally occurs, might find this method appealing. While it certainly has merits as a way of naturally incorporating learning into a student's life, it is important to ensure that basic essential concepts are being taught, and especially where the state's homeschooling laws are concerned. An exhaustive list of the different approaches to homeschooling would make this discussion considerably longer. Instead, this discussion is meant to merely introduce you to some of the more popular approaches to homeschooling. Not only are there more approaches not mentioned here, but lots of homeschooling families often incorporate more than one approach into their daily learning. And this is considered an approach as well, and it is known as eclectic homeschooling. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. How to find the right curriculum. While the advantage to homeschooling is being able to tailor the learning to suit the student's needs, interest, and learning style, it can also be a disadvantage, specifically in regards to selecting a curriculum. There are many different curricula from which to choose. The number of different ones available is staggering. So how can a parent possibly find the right one for their student? The first step in choosing a curriculum is to determine why you have made the decision to homeschool your student. Give yourself time to really think about your reasons why and to write them down. Include in your list the way or ways in which your student learns best, and also include your budgetary considerations. This list will guide your search for a curriculum that will be ideal to you and your student. This list keeps you going when those times come when you feel like throwing in the towel. As you consider your list of reasons why you want to homeschool, you can begin to match them up with different approaches and different curricula. For example, if you want to approach learning holistically, then the unit study approach might be ideal for you because you can take a single concept and explore all facets of it and how all the subjects interconnect with one another. Are you interested in raising a critical thinker? Then the classical approach might be the right approach for you, and you can then find a curriculum which follows this approach. If you have access to a homeschooling convention or fair or expo, this is a great way to acclimate yourself to the different kinds of curricula available. You will have the benefit of a hands-on opportunity to view and browse the materials and to see what appeals to you. If you are not able to attend an in-person event, you can browse the internet to find examples of different kinds of curricula available. Note, searches such as Best Homeschool Curriculum or Top Homeschool Curricula will not yield authentic results. Instead, go directly to the company and look at their products and offerings. Try to find unbiased reviews by other homeschooling parents on the various curricula. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Options for doing the teaching. The good news is that parents do have options when it comes to teaching their student at home. One stumbling block some parents have is feeling inadequate. Be reassured, a homeschool parent does not need to possess the same educational background, skill set, and classroom experience as does a traditional teacher. A teacher trains for years to direct a classroom full of different students every year. By comparison, a homeschool parent only needs to know their student. While you, as the parent, may not have a precise knowledge of your student's academic knowledge when you start, you will likely know what interests them and how they learn. This type of knowledge will be more helpful for you in your homeschooling environment than all the traditional teacher training in the world. Your classroom consists of the same students year after year. Another reason a parent may search for assistance with teaching is if their work schedule does not permit it. Whether you work outside the home, or you are ill, or in some way unable to be your student's teacher, you may need assistance with the supervision of your student's home learning. There may be options available to you that you never considered, or ones that you are unaware of, i.e., a family member or another homeschooling parent. Another option you may have in your area is a learning center, where there are teachers that oversee a number of different students' learning processes. Do not expect that any of these options will be free. Even if your family member is able to help and does not ask for compensation, you should offer it. This is no small undertaking. For all options, it is probably best to work with the person who will be supervising your students' learning in the curriculum selection process. The best option is for you to homeschool your student yourself. No one is going to care as much or be as invested in your student's education as you are. Perhaps the other option can be viewed as temporary while you build your confidence or while you make adjustments to your work situation to accommodate your student. You made the decision to homeschool your student. It is your responsibility to see it through. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. How will my child learn advanced subjects like calculus? Your student's homeschooling experience is progressing well, and your student's getting older and moving into higher grades and more difficult subjects. You felt comfortable in the early years with the foundational subjects, reading, simple mathematics, basic science. These were all manageable. The intermediate level of learning was a bit more intimidating, but you were able to successfully oversee your student's studies. Now that your student is in the advanced topics, you are well aware that you are not equipped to teach these subjects. What can you do? Fortunately, you have lots of options. One of the best options is to find a video version of the course you are unable to teach. Numerous homeschoolers, as part of their curriculum selection, include a video teaching version of the topic in question. Video courses on topics such as calculus, physics, Latin, Greek, college writing are widely available and easily obtained. Not only can you purchase a static, non-interactive video course on DVD or as a download or stream, you can also find an actual online live course where maybe once a week your student has a live session with the instructor and does the assigned work on their own time offline. Homeschool co-ops sometimes offer instruction on some subjects. Each co-op has its own set of goals and benefits, so it's impossible to speak comprehensively here on all of them. Check with your local homeschool co-op to see if the subject in question is taught within the co-op. Even if it isn't, undoubtedly one of the homeschool parents in the co-op will be able to direct you to a resource. It's also possible to find a local community college where your student can attend an on-ground course with other students. Many community colleges have programs in which they accept homeschool students, and in turn, they are able to earn college credit. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. What if my child is advanced? Similar to the concern of how to teach your student advanced subjects is the question of how to teach your advanced student. For instance, how do you teach a 6-year-old who is already reading, performing 4th grade level math, and is moving through science at an accelerated rate? One of the greatest benefits of homeschooling is that there is no predetermined or preset pace at which you will guide your student through the curriculum. Your student is a class of 1. They have no one to hold them back. So if your 1st grader completes their 1st grade math book by December, get the 2nd grade math book and keep going. There's no reason to make your child wait. Let them move as quickly as they wish. As was mentioned earlier, if you come to a point as the parent where you are unable to keep up with your student, then find resources that can keep them sailing along. If your student is college bound, their accelerated learning path will serve them well. You can look into how your student can earn college credit while in high school. Or if your student has a career goal, they can graduate early and begin training and/or certification in their chosen field. Your advanced student can conceivably be an accountant or nurse or any number of jobs before their 20th, 19th, or even 18th birthday. As long as your student is meeting your family's personal goals as well as the state's requirements, the sky is the limit. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. What if my child falls behind? A valid concern for any homeschooler is for their student who may fall behind for whatever reason. Sometimes a student becomes ill and is unable to keep up with their coursework and is not able to catch up by the end of the school year. Or maybe a student is simply struggling with the material and is unable to understand it well enough to remain on track. Or perhaps it's been a difficult homeschooling year for other reasons, and the student is just behind schedule, plain and simple. What happens in these situations? A student who falls behind for reasons other than being developmentally delayed or possessing a learning disability will eventually catch up. It may not happen in a month or a semester. It may not even happen the same school year. but allowing your student to progress through a difficult concept at their own pace can potentially give them a measure of confidence to push through the challenge. Your only real challenge may be in regards to meeting your state's homeschooling requirements. Most every state makes allowances for students who show challenges with the learning. As a reminder, you will seek out resources for your student if they are struggling. Have they fallen behind in math? Perhaps a different curriculum is in order. Are they struggling with writing? Perhaps an adjustment in the writing assignment will help. For a student who may have a learning disability or is developmentally delayed, you will need to investigate how to best handle this situation. Your state's homeschooling laws may have a specific section addressing this issue. Your local school district may also be able to provide some suggestions. But you as the parent can and will remain in control of your student's learning experience. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Are virtual charter schools homeschooling? While virtual charter schools are considered by some to fall under the umbrella of homeschooling, they are technically not really homeschooling. A virtual charter school, also known as a cyber charter school, is essentially public school at home, and as such remains firmly under the authority and supervision of the administration of the school. The school determines the curriculum in all aspects of it. The school requires specific days and hours of learning. Some schools even require attendance at certain online sessions. It is clear, given these parameters, that the virtual charter schools are not homeschooling. Yet, many parents who consider themselves homeschoolers opt for using virtual charter schools. After all, everything is free. The computer, the books, the supplies, the field trips are paid for and pre-scheduled. And it's somewhat easier. The parent literally just opens the boxes, sets up the computer, and plugs it in, and supervises their student as the student views the lessons and completes the work. The online teacher is available to answer questions the student may have that the parent is unable to answer. But there is a trade-off. For all the free materials and supplies and a teacher who is available to answer all your questions, you as the parent may have very limited oversight. You do not have the option to choose a curriculum and tailor it to adjust to your student's needs and interests and to your goals. Granted, you can do very minor customization, but you are not allowed to remove anything from the curriculum and what is required of your student. If you do not like all the assignments, you are out of luck because your student is still required to complete them. All of the required days and hours must be accounted for and meticulously recorded within a specific time frame. Failure to comply can result in penalties and consequences you may not wish to experience. In considering a virtual charter school for your student, make sure to read all of the details and requirements before you select this option. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Can my child participate in sports and activities? Sometimes a factor that keeps a parent from choosing the homeschool is the belief that their student cannot participate in organized sports or special activities. The truth is that your student can actually participate in these activities. Your local school district should accommodate your request for your student to participate in their activities on their teams. You will, of course, need to check with your local school district for details, as well as your state's homeschooling laws. If the activities or teams your student wants to join are not affiliated with the school district, it will be even easier for your student to participate. Activities outside of a school rarely make the distinction between homeschooled and traditionally schooled students. Instead, the focus is on the participation of the student and their skill level and collaboration skills. If you are concerned that your student will not have peer-segregated socialization opportunities, here is your chance to involve them in these activities. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Will colleges accept homeschooling as valid? As a growing number of families are turning to homeschooling for their students' education, more and more colleges are seeing applications from these homeschooled students. Where once homeschooling was viewed as fringe and questionable, colleges and universities are no longer skeptical of admitting homeschooled students, namely because of their performance once being admitted. Homeschooled students have shown themselves to be capable of attending and completing their college studies as their traditionally schooled peers, if not more so. In fact, the research indicates that a greater percentage of homeschooled students graduate from college than do their peers from traditional public schools. The research has also shown that homeschooled students tend to have higher GPAs than their traditionally schooled peers. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I'll see you either in another video or in another course.